Welcome, everybody, to the Wellness Founders Podcast, where we explore the business of wellness and the people creating the future of well-being. Today, I'm with Eloiza Tecson. Aloysia, you are a health and wellness executive, an advisor, an investor. You're currently serving as the CEO of LWI, the largest network of Lindora Wellness studios in Southern California. You're co-founder of E20, where they shock people legally. EMS. I've tried it before. It's actually pretty cool. It helps you improve your movement, your recovery, and if you're a masochist, it also helps with that. You have a large leadership background too. You've worked with a lot of different companies: Orange Theory, Red Bull, St. Jude's, F45. I was trying to go through your whole resume, and I think I could spend the whole podcast talking about it. The coolest thing about you, I think, is ultramarathoner, triathlon athlete. I feel like that should be one word, triathlete. And a women's sports advocate. You've gotten many awards, including Forbes 30 Under 30, Next Gen Under 30, probably like 30 other awards. You like the number 30? 30.
I guess so, yeah.
Anything that I missed important?
Well, I guess the big one here is like I'm a dog mom and I absolutely love my golden doodle, which you and I have chatted about during our first
Yes.
meeting.
Yes. I don't know how I missed the golden doodle. Well, the golden doodle's not in the podcast, right? You should have the golden
No,
doodle on your
no,
lap.
I really should
Uh,
have. Yep, I missed the mark there.
that's your big mess up with this podcast already, not having the dog in the podcast. I could easily get mine, right? She
Uh,
does look like she's sleeping, so I'm gonna let her sleep. But welcome to the podcast. We're gonna have an actual conversation about business too.
Amazing. Well, hey Jordan, I'm so looking forward to the conversation here. This is going to be a blast, but thank you for having me.
Awesome. Let's jump into it. And I think the first thing that I thought of when we were talking about business in wellness was you told me you were an Orange Theory franchisee at 19 years old. Is that true or is
hmm
that false? Is that a myth?
Is that a myth? No, it is not a myth. I actually had a chance to be able to operate several actually franchise studios by early ages. And I was really fortunate about it because I had absolutely zero experience and zero idea what it looked like to be an operator. And I fell in love with it. It was, I would say that that was certainly like this like catalyst into what the future direction of my career would look like.
What do you think it catalyzed the most? I'm thinking about what I was doing at 19, and the catalyzation I had at 19 was in a completely different direction than yours.
Mhm,
So what
mhm.
what could you how did that happen, and then what did you learn from that? Seems like a crazy experience.
Well, I had an incredible group of mentors that just wanted to sweep me under their wing. And what I would say is like what happens from that experience or what the outcomes of that experience. And I think like truly it became this like central theme of I like being around people and creating healthy communities and serving the community. And those are quite frankly like concepts and themes that I've taken with me across every single part of my career since that defining moment.
And what does that mean to you? Like, what does community mean to you? Because I feel like these terms are thrown around a lot, and I get curious about how people define them differently. Because there's certainly brands that are like, yeah, we have a community, and then you go to one of their events or you go to their thing, and it's like you don't have a community. So like,
Yeah.
how do you quantify that or define it?
Sure. I would say that it really actually manifests into two different pathways because I think on one side of the equation, most people are going to define community from this is my set of customers that I am serving, and this is the market that I'm serving with potential and current customers. But really, what I've realized is that over the last couple of years, especially as I've tapped into more like leadership training and education, community actually is set by your team and your employees first. So, in everything that I've done, as I think about building a brand that invests into the community, it actually starts off with investing to their talent, to their people and their teams first. Because if you invest into your teams first, then they will naturally create an experience that enables your customers to be a part of the brand.
And how do you do that? Like, how do you invest in your team and not just as
Uh,
um, I'd say like performative gesture, but something where you're
mhm.
actually doing it and believing in it and being it?
Yeah, well, a lot of different ways. One is it has to stay very authentic and true to your core values. So, and a lot of the body of work that I've done from a talent development perspective is more so one, setting the benchmark for understanding operationally how we want to be to behave as an organization. But then, like, part two, and more importantly, is implementing in a way that feels very personalized to the team member. I think in most cases, in working with some organizations, they look at talent and employee development as this like broader category and initiative. But the reality of it is, we're dealing with human beings, and human beings are very personalized and emotional and require a different set of level of connections than from one another. So I would say that a big focal point in a work that I've done is creating like personalized individual development programs for our team members. So that way they feel invested, they feel bought in, and they also feel like we're actually speaking to them one to one as a human rather than as a part of an employee base.
And so if we're role playing here and I am one of your team members,
Yeah.
how is it you're going to get to know me? How is it you're going to get to know like what I need from a development
hmm
perspective?
I would say that I actually take the back burner backseat, and I am in full listen and sponge mode. So one thing in particular is actually taking a lot of time to just be able to understand the human outside of work. Because I think in most cases, people like to assume that there's this very healthy straight line balance between work and life. But the reality of it is if you're doing it well, especially in the work that we're in, right, in the category that we're in, health and wellness, it's an emotional business and a relationship oriented business. So what I have realized is that being in this space requires an emotional connection to your team members and understanding who they are as a holistic whole being, right? So I take the time to sit down and understand, what are your interests? What are the things that you're curious about? What does development look like for you? And it certainly like carves out this space where most cases like leaders like to only understand the tactical skills that are required to perform the job. And that's the only things that they'll invest in, right? But rather, it's more impactful if we understand as a human, what are the things that you're curious about, different skill sets, different initiatives, different projects that you want to work on, even if that means to, it's might be slightly deviated from what's actually listed on your job description, right? That then enables us to have a much deeper rooted connection and relationship that allow me to be able to actually invest into you as an individual person, right?
And do you think there's like specific things about the wellness space that inform your decisions about how to interact with your employees or your teammates, or because I when I interview people, it seems like people go into the wellness space because they're passionate about it. Like most people that I talk
hmm
to that are in it are like, I'm in it because I love this space, I live this space. And so does that have an impact at all in how you approach all of this?
Absolutely. I mean, I think first off, I reflect back on why I came into this space in the first place, right? And that story is that when my family and I had moved from the Philippines to America, we had used health, wellness, and sports as a way to just immerse us into the culture. So I've grown up even as a child understanding the gravity and the power and weight that this category can have to be able to have enable people to feel connected to something and enable people to feel connected to communities. And then as I fast forward into going to boutique fitness specifically, what comes out of that category is realizing that it's so much so of a personalized relationship that you have with your customers, right? Yes, you can develop systematic and tech enabled driven programs that are very structured in nature, but at the end of the day, we're dealing with humans, and humans can be sporadic. They can change their emotions and their feelings within a second. And having the ability to be able to adapt to how the body is reacting and how emotions are triggered, then I think that in of itself goes back to your question of, how does that show up in terms of how we actually lead our team members and how we think about leading organizations in this space, which is being incredibly thoughtful and understanding the emotional connections that are driven behind our decisions.
Yeah, it would seem like any company in the wellness space would need to be focused on wellness internally, like from an HR
Yes.
perspective with their people. Otherwise, it's
hmm
like, what's the point? Why are we, why are we even in this
Yeah.
industry?
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious about like the chapters of your business life. So, would you consider the first chapter that 19-year-old experience, franchisee, Orange Theory? Is that a chapter? Is that the first
Oh,
chapter?
and absolutely. The entire Orange Theory experience was a chapter for sure.
Okay, so that spanned from 19 to how old?
Uh, 2024.
Okay. And I
Yeah,
may be,
24.
yeah, I may be putting you on the spot here because I have your LinkedIn up, so I could see this very easily, and you
Yeah, I
don't.
was
So
like, can you tell me how
you
old
may
I was?
forget, yeah, you may forget your entire life here as I ask you about it. So, so that was, I love to break people's business life up into chapters and have like the signifying moments, and lessons of those chapters. So, the 19-year-old looks like 5 year. It looks like it was 5 years in
Mm-hmm.
Orange Theory. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say was the pivotal moment of that chapter and the pivotal lesson?
Yeah, I would say it was when I was able to hold the role of actually becoming the chief of staff to the COO. And the reason why that was important for me was because it allowed me to be able to understand the franchising space more broadly. So I had the chance to be able to work on some pretty incredible strategic initiatives. I got to work with some pretty incredible partners. But then also more importantly, it allowed me to take one step back and look through and ask, what does Eloiza want to do when she grows up? And the answer lied actually in me looking through a group of franchisees and realizing, like, my goodness, franchisees, they are entrepreneurs, they are executives, they wanted to be their own boss, they wanted to become their own CEOs. And that fueled me in a way that excited me about helping entrepreneurs. So that was certainly a pivotal moment.
Okay, so then you learn about franchising. What is it to you that stuck out about franchising as a model, as a business where you're like, this is where I'm going to put a lot of energy and effort going forward?
Mm, yeah, I would say that it balances this concept of having a structured, rigid program, but also creating a sense of flexibility and autonomy for people to be able to run their business in a way that resonates most with their local markets. So that concept in of itself, I think it actually surpasses just going beyond franchising, right? I think it's certainly a concept that all organizations can adopt.
Yeah, and I'm curious, is the next chapter after that? So you have this experience, the chief of staff at Orange Theory, and then if the LinkedIn is to be correct, you went into franchise operations and marketing strategy. You have too many experiences, so I literally have to look at it like line by line to like figure out what these chapters are. And you can help me out if
Yeah.
I get the chapters wrong, but it you go to F45,
Mm-hmm.
franchise operations, marketing strategy.
Yeah.
So what was that its own chapter, or do you kind of lump the other things into that, or that was
I would say that I lumped that into just my broader work because I was actually performing the work with F45 alongside some other
yeah.
organizations in consulting and then also investing into startups inside health, wellness, sports, and technology.
And that's when the Forbes 30 under 30 came in. It looks like too.
Yes, that's exactly right. Hmm.
So take me into all the things that were going on in your life at that point, and how were you managing and organizing all of it? Because it seems like it's probably a lot.
It definitely was. However, I've always just been really excited about challenge and growth. I know that's such a high level answer. And you're like, Aloysia, we literally talked about trying to be as tactical and specific as possible. But that's really that's the reality. Alongside the work experience, I also got very curious about my education in school because I finished my bachelor's program so quickly, and I'm like, "Ah, I need to go back to school." So I got my master's, and then I decided to go get my PhD in organizational leadership. And for me, when I think about those experiences, I would say that it has this common thread of I get really excited about working with some exceptional people and learning and understanding what it takes to be a good leader and how to grow and develop organizations from A to Z, right? And that certainly is the theme that I've taken with me, whether it's from a consulting capacity, advising, whether I was investing into concepts. And it's certainly a like, educational proof point that I've also had a chance to be able to work with some founders and entrepreneurs as well.
Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna nail you down on something here, which is like, what do you think? You seem self-aware. What do you do different? What do you think you do different than like 99% of leaders? And whether
Mm,
it's like how you manage your time, how you lead people, what are the little things that you're like, this is like a disproportional reason for my success that I do differently than everybody else?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that it's something that makes me stand out or makes me unique. It's just what's worked for me, right? And what I think, like pulling on that thread, I think in most cases, leaders that I've researched, right, during my research days, I think that in most cases we try to put leadership in this concept of leadership into a box, right? And it's a very clear, crisp playbook that everybody should follow. And when I was doing my initial research of how I wanted to show up as a leader and how I wanted to lead organizations, there was always these moments where I felt like, I don't know if that's me. I don't think that's me. I don't know if that's really how I should be showing up. Because just to give you a peek under the curtain of how like my personality traits is, like it's very much so more on the emotional, empathetic, soft, and like social side, right? Which I think growing up as a kid, I never would have imagined that that is the definition of what an executive and a CEO and a leader should look like, right? It's very much so usually like this aggressive, like brute, like structured, rigid persona, but it never felt authentic to me. So I would say that one big piece of advice that an early mentor had given me was when I was starting to climb the quote unquote corporate ladder. I sat down with him and I go, "Hey, so I'm very interested about leading organizations one day, and I'm really interested about inspiring team members to be able to achieve a common goal. But I don't show up in the way that X, X, and X, which is the former like persona that I had assumed that a leader should be." And the advice that he gave me was, if you stay true to who you are and you lean in and you're consistently leaning in, you will achieve success because people are going to realize that you're just being as authentic to yourself as possible and people are going to get bought in. And then that in of itself should create change and should inspire people to take action. So I would say it's actually leaning into just my own like personal softness. That's something that's helped me.
Yeah, I think just from my experience, and it hasn't been as extensive as the teams that you've led, but just being a leader in my life and in um, different places, I've noticed the more that I am vulnerable, the more that I show
Hmm.
who I actually am, the more it gives people permission to be who they are.
Yeah.
And again, I go back to like being in the wellness space where I think it's pretty easy to tell if someone lives that way, or it's just, performative in the sense that like I want to take care of my body, I want to take care of my mind, I want to take care of my spirit, and that's why I'm in this industry, why I'm pushing it forward. Is I believe that there's something deeper from a purpose that we're doing by being in this industry, by helping people become more healthy, helping people heal, helping people whatever, insert the box here for wellness. Um, and if I'm not doing that for myself, how could I do that for other people? How could I show up
Yeah.
and have a product or a service or some type of meaningful connection to what I'm doing if I'm a complete mess, which
Yeah.
arguably I might be, but
I don't think that's the case. That's not the case by any means.
but a complete mess that's trying to take care of himself. So,
Yeah.
okay, let's go back to the chapters. Enough about me. So you had the chapter in F45 where you kind of also started EY Ventures,
Hmm.
and you're going through this process of winning the Forbes the 30 under 30 award, probably a whole bunch of other awards too. And you're going through the first stages of investing. It sounds like at that time.
Hmm.
Can you tell me what the first investment was in the wellness space that you made personally? Do you remember
Yeah.
what that was?
Yes. So the first one is actually a mental health company called Optimize Mind Performance. They are actually doing incredibly well right now. They're partnering with some of the biggest teams in the NFL and the MLB. And that was actually especially meaningful for me because one, it was my first stunt at actually investing and trying to go through an entire investment process from a investor's point of view, right? And I was still learning how to ask the right questions and thinking through deal structure and thinking through how I should be looking at the model. Because again, like I didn't have formal experience in the past. I'm purely relying on my mentors who were just supporting me along the way, which I'm super grateful for because they're active mentors and partners of mine to date. But nevertheless, I was actually deeply proud of that experience because, um, one, they're still successful today, and I'm really proud of them. But then also, two, I learned a lot about uh, a new subcategory in the wellness space, which is just like kind of deep in my experience in terms of how I should be thinking about the category and building a portfolio.
And so how did that, so you started the EY Ventures group. How did you meet the other people that were part of that? How did you come together over that? What was the process to getting to that first investment and agreeing on it? Like, how did that all go?
Sure. It was actually thanks to my Orange Theory experience, just because I had come across such an incredible group of people and leaders and executives that we became friends. And when I had an idea of starting to launch a venture capital firm, somehow, some way, they go, "Aloysia, I think that you could do it," and they believed in me and they said yes.
And then they became um, partners in that
Hmm.
as like mentors, advisors, co-investors, like everything, or
All
was
the
there a
above.
structure? Okay, so there
Yes.
was some structures that you agreed upon. Good, but
Hmm.
they had been. It sounds like they had experience with investment because I'm trying to imagine what it would be like to go into a situation where it's like your first time investing. You have all these people supporting you, but how much are you like leaning on them versus how much were you researching and like really diving in yourself of like what you needed to learn?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that just like naturally in everything that I do, I always try to do it myself. And that's always been important for me. And it's probably just been something that I've taken from my parents because I want to intimately understand the process. Yes, of course, like if I ever had any questions or if I deviated or if I went the wrong path, I had my mentors to rely on. But it was actually just important for me to just intimately know every single part of building the fund and building a firm and starting to invest and performing due diligence. And in doing so, it allowed me a much deeper understanding of what it would look like for my team to perform these processes as well and have these responsibilities, which again, like form of leadership was always, it goes back to it.
And what was like the most like non-obvious part of that process where you're going through figuring out how to create this fund and you're just like, I would have never guessed that.
I would say building out the actual, which is so interesting, but it's like actually building out the financial economic like model, not only for the fund, but then also how we should be thinking about investments as well.
Hmm.
Um, I think most cases people like to assume that it's a very like structured process because it's like, okay, well, whip out your Excel spreadsheet and then just start going and then use a template. But it was much more nuanced in the way that my partners have actually invested in the past. So it helped me get this deeper understanding of like, no, we have to customize every single thing that we do, which is a form of leadership in of itself.
And tell me about how that process works. So if you're evaluating an investment, and we've talked about your first one. So let's say the process for evaluating investments, and then what were all the ones that you've invested in and why?
Yeah. Well, I've invested into a few concepts. Some of them I've learned from, and then some of them are still successful to this day. But the process really has been one when we first initially started investing into concepts. We, of course, like stayed within our domain of expertise because one big tenet to just how we operate is we are operators actually by heart. So we never wanted to be in part of a situation or relationship where we were just being a capital resource, but rather we always wanted to make sure that we could actually be of actual support and we get put to work. You know, something that I've been told in the past is anybody that's on your cap table should be put to work for your business. And it's probably been said to me more eloquently in the past, but it's certainly something that I take with me today. So how we would evaluate businesses is one, at the end of the day, like we were working with early stage companies, so anywhere between pre-seed, seed, no more than Series A. And when you're working with an organization of that growth stage, there's a lot of moving pieces, and quite frankly, they need a lot of help. So we wanted to make sure that we were looking for concepts that one had a solid, good leadership team, because at the end of the day, you're investing into the people and not the product or the service. Then also, secondly, we would have a meaningful relationship where we can plug in our areas of expertise, whether it's operations, sales, marketing, finance, and actually just be put to work to help the company grow. So that's essentially how we looked at potential deals.
And when you say put to work in your fund, do you have like a team that you're bringing in,
Correct.
an
Hmm.
operating team that kind of works
Yep,
across the different investments, and like
exactly.
how much time and resource are they allocating to each of the projects?
It depends really on the need. At this point now, we've been on this journey for the last couple of years. So there's some companies that might require a little bit more help than others. So it's certainly more flexible by nature. But I mean, even more practically speaking, some of the bodies of work that we'll do is like we'll run digital advertising campaigns. We'll create a playbook and actually deploy trainings for sales, like sales training for team members. So it can be very like, tactical in nature too.
And so the ones that you learned the most from,
Yes.
what did you learn?
Um, yeah, that's a great question. One is always just trying to always checking in, even if I feel that the team's got it and the model's great, that they've gotten their customer acquisition costs down and all of these like key metrics, right? Don't put your eye off the ball. Like always make sure that you're checking in. That was something that I had to learn the hard way on because I made assumptions and thought, great, we don't need to be of support. We don't need to be of support as much as we used to. Um, and it's interesting. I was just recently speaking to a group of college kids and they were asking for my viewpoint on investing. And the statement that I had given them was, as you think about potential capital partners for a business, remember that is a long-term relationship, and it is a Loctite relationship that you have to maintain and that you have to manage and that you have to continuously nurture as if you had a personal relationship, right? So that's essentially how we should be looking at potential deals.
And then the ones that have been most successful, why have they been the most successful?
Because I did check in. This is the other way around. I haven't put my foot off the gas pedal. So it's a wonderful thing that happens when you try to just follow the same formula.
Well, you said
But
follow the same formula, but you also said that they're custom for every single one,
I
and
know,
that
I know.
there's just a
I'm
lot
just talking
of
as I know there's a lot of nuances here in context,
so
but
many nuances.
a lot of things. I would say like one, the ones that have been successful today are that they one are actually completely different business models. So they're more on the technology side rather than brick and mortar side, which is really fascinating to me. But then also, secondly, I would say that the founding teams were just exceptional. Like they think about business outside of the confines of how they originally created their business model. So they're always just in this constant like innovation, learning, evolution, trying to test new initiatives and new ways of working. So I would say that's one of the big pieces of why they've been successful so far.
What do you think it takes to think innovatively like that? Is that a muscle that you can work on in some way? Do you think people are just born having this out of the box mentality? Like how do you do it?
Yeah, well, I think some people are definitely born with it. I mean, that's why you have some of the greats of the greats. But I think on the other side, I definitely think it's something that you can actually learn from. And it's a matter of having this like emotional intelligence and capacity and self-awareness to know that, hey, I probably shouldn't be moving a million miles a minute. I need to take time to pause, reflect, and ask myself the questions of, could I think about this differently? Could I do things differently? And that's really all it takes to start creating that muscle of wanting to innovate.
Okay, so you've done all these investments, and then E20 comes in the picture, LWI comes in the picture.
Yeah,
They're outside of this investment group,
correct.
right? Um, so how did those come about? And it seems like E20 was first almost 2 years ago. and
Mm-hmm.
then LWI was relatively recent.
Mm-hmm.
But what was the decision to like, oh, I'm gonna put some time and investment into these things as well?
Well, on the E20 front, because I had been working with so many entrepreneurs, I'm like, I was getting the entrepreneurial itch. I'm like, I've got to do this. I really want to experience this myself. And I had come across the technology of electromuscle stimulation because over in the European markets, EMS studios are wildly successful, and you can see an EMS studio on every block. So it was fascinating to me that it hadn't gotten that much traction here in the US. So I spent actually the last several years just researching the technology. Is it efficacious, and what's the history and science behind it? And that in of itself inspired me and really motivated me to try to create a new brick and mortar concept myself. So I partnered with a couple mentors of mine who are still active partners and investors for E20 today, and I'm super grateful for them. And we came together to create this new concept. And essentially, like my goal and vision behind it was I wanted to reframe and rethink the way we think about strength training and rehabilitation using the technology of EMS to be able to enable bodies to be able to move differently, and also probably enable bodies to move in a way that they've never have been before or haven't been in quite some time. So our first stunt actually was investing into clinical research. So we partnered with some pretty fantastic organizations that I can't publicly disclose just yet, but I will be able to soon. And we tested how EMS could work on human bodies that are going through a weight loss medication, as well as people who are going through certain chronic conditions, like they're faced with paralysis, Parkinson's, ALS, chronic back pain, etc. And the results and outcomes of the trials were pretty exceptional. So, of course, that's now another proof point of all right. So there's science and technology that works behind here. Now, can we create a brand new, innovative brick and mortar retail experience? So we opened up our first E20 studio, like our first permanent location, because we were operating out of a pop up for the last couple of years back in December 2024. So we're almost at a year, 1 year anniversary. But now we have been incredibly proud of the performance for our first location and are preparing for future growth. So I'll be able to share more about that here soon. And in the meantime, one of my partners for E20 is actually a partner for Lindora. So I had actually came on board to Lindora back in 2023 as the chief experience officer. And essentially that experience, that chapter, as you like to call it, was all the things working with some pretty exceptional team members. So we've got 30 locations down here in Southern California. It's a 50 plus year brand. And my goal and objective was to rethink the way we think about weight loss and nutrition coaching and nutrition counseling. So we did some pretty exceptional bodies of work that enabled us to create a brand new customer experience model. And that got us really excited to actually prepare us for this next phase of Lindora, which was actually selling the brand rights to Exponential Fitness. So that happened 6 months after I started, which was fantastic. And now, as we think of the current state, fast forward to 2025, we are now actually part of the Next Health brand. So we are now the largest franchisee of Lindora Studios. So I still maintain leadership over our 30 locations down here in Southern California.
It seems like you just like snap your finger and a bunch of things happen.
I really
Um,
would like to say that that's what happens.
yeah,
That
yeah,
would be
yeah.
great. But
From the outside looking in, it looks like yeah, it seems like things are, a lot of people have trouble getting from 0 to 1 on a lot of things. And you can argue that a lot of the things you didn't go 0 to 1. Maybe from a franchise perspective, you took over a franchise, and
Mhm.
that is one benefit of doing a franchise is you don't have to go from 0 to 1. You can use a model that's already there. What I'm curious of is, as someone who's doing all these things, like what do you think is your superpower of like taking action? Like where does that come from? Because it seems like you might, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you like have an idea and you're like, I'm gonna do that. and there's not like this big barrier to action for you, where for a
Mm,
lot of people there are massive barriers to action, whether it be mental, whether it be, I don't know, excuses they tell themselves, or practical things. But you seem to just have this mindset of being an achiever, taking action. Like, what does that come from, and why do you think that that piece? Uh, I don't want to say it's easy for you, but it appears easy from the outside.
sure. Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. And it's certainly not easy by any means. You know what? I think if I reflect back, a lot of it is just how I was raised by my parents and being coming from like an immigrant family, it certainly shapes the way that I think. But one thing that I might say here is it's about not being afraid to fail. I would say that in most cases for people who don't take that next step, a lot of the time it's actually yourself, right? We can't get in our own way. We can't stop getting in our own way. And one thing that I've always taken with me is if I'm curious about something and I'm actually truly, honestly, intellectually curious about something, I have to lean in. But then also being okay with saying that there are pieces that I want to put on the back burner and that I want a parking lot, and not giving myself the pressure and giving myself a little bit more grace to say that I want to focus on these key things. But I guess, like, to answer your question more succinctly, it's just letting go and just taking that first next step, not being afraid to fail and not being so overly nervous and anxious about what's to come after that first step.
And you say, put some things in the parking lot and focus on these main things. But if you have like 10 main things, uh, like how, just practically, how do you manage your time? Like how do you split your time each week to say, between these different companies? Like, is there a percentage
Yeah.
that you're allocating mentally in your head or in your color coded Google Calendar? Well, what's the secret for how you give all of these things some form of attention so they don't completely crash and burn?
Sure. Well, I do have a very beautifully color coded calendar, so that absolutely helps.
Need a
But then
screenshot of that for the
I
thumbnail.
know, right? Exactly, exactly. I'll make sure to share it. But then the other more practical pieces is that, listen, like, I'd love to say that all of this was done alone, but it certainly was not. I am incredibly grateful for the teams that we have because it requires a village. My goodness, like, we're managing a talent population of almost 300 employees across Southern California. So you can imagine that it certainly requires a team with an aligned vision and focus. So that's one incredibly important piece to be able to make these things happen. But then I think on the other side too, it's a matter of just being very honest with yourself of what matters most and where you want to prioritize your time. And giving yourself a little bit of grace to know that if there are things that aren't perfect and maybe you did drop the ball on something, just being honest about it and saying that you can't perform something. I think, again, like, we put our own internal pressures on ourselves, and that's what typically gets in the way of success and growth. So just being honest, really.
But I imagine there's a lot of context switching too. Like your brain is probably like, I know what my brain is like, and I have a lot of context switching in my life because I run a few different businesses, these different
Hmm.
communities, different things that I'm thinking about. Is there a practical way that you're actually taking your days and being like, this part of the day is for this business, or this whole day is this business, like in a week setting? Is there some
Yeah.
kind of allocation you're doing in that way?
There is, absolutely. Just because, one, I like to be as present as possible in everything that I do. So some more like practical things that I've done are, one, I eliminate every single distraction when I have a chance to meet with somebody, right? And I've also reshifted the way that I think about my in-person time too. So what that looks like in practice is the notion that I've set forth with the team is, if I'm coming into the office, it's because I'm having an in-person meeting and we're trying to make decisions. But if I'm not, then I'm working remotely and trying to be in brain mode and trying to ideate and trying to conceptualize and trying to actually do some really good productive work. And then on the other side, when we think about like allocating my time across different businesses, something that I've put into practice is one, actually like doing an E20 workout every single week. Like it allows me to one, like get the physical and emotional and mental benefits of actually being part of the brand and experiencing it as a customer. But then also two, like allowing me face-to-face time with the team, just checking in, making sure that they're okay.
And that maybe that's the best part of all this is you just get free like EMS treatment. Isn't
Of
that like the
course.
best? Isn't that the
It's
best part?
interesting. And the same thing goes for Lindora LWI. One thing that I always had committed to myself when I was younger is that if I'm going to be involved in the business, it's because I can actively participate as a customer and as a consumer, because I have to understand the customer experience in order for me to be able to create change. So thankfully, I get fitness and health and wellness, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And what would you say is, well, actually, let me rethink this question because I've gotten the advice that like you should focus on one thing, go all the way in, and like your whole life should be about it. And my brain does not compute that way. It's
Hmm.
kind of always like wanting variety, wanting
Yeah.
different things. I'm curious for you, is the function of doing all these things and doing them well, is it a function of that need that you might have to like have variety? Is it wanting to achieve like what causes somebody to want to have like all these different leadership positions at once?
Mm.
And I'm asking for myself.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that you've done very well for yourself as well. Um, it's interesting because I think that in most cases, when people look at a person that does a variety of things, right? I would say that in my mind, I don't like to think of them as operating into separate silos, but
Yeah.
rather doing one thing, being involved in one thing should, in theory, help me be better at another thing, and vice versa,
Mm,
right? Like they should be complementary in nature. And quite frankly, that's how I've always thought about where I invest my time in.
yeah.
I typically do things because I feel like it's going to have a greater benefit on other parts of my life. I don't think that things operate in a separate silo in my life.
Yeah, I had to, I mean, it's one of the reasons why I started this particular brand because I noticed that a lot of my time and effort was going into industries that I didn't feel as connected to. And like a lot of our
Mm,
clients were in those industries, and that is fine. And we still have another business that I don't operate necessarily the day to day, but I'm still involved in. But once I was like, all right, I want to just be in wellness. I want to be having conversations about wellness all day. Like that's what I want to do. And I have my own communities. We have our own, stuff that I'm living through every day. Granted, it's here in Colombia and it's a little bit different than the US. Um, yeah, I found that if it all goes in the same direction or if it's all somehow in the same bucket, they should, like you said, they should complement each other.
hmm.
But it's still hard because I feel like my brain sometimes is just like, dude, pick one. But then I'm like, I can't pick one. What
But
do
I
you
can't pick
mean?
one.
What do you
I
mean
think
pick
one
one?
thing, I think you just have to ask yourself, like, is our brain subconsciously asking us to pick one because societal pressures have always like told us that that's how it should be? But
Yeah, it
other
could
than
be.
that, just lean into what your personal interests are, even if that means it requires variety.
Yeah, but I think there is something though to like extreme focus because I know that if I did pick one and just did one, it would be insane what I could accomplish. But
Um,
I'd still have this like desire inside of like, oh, but
Desire, yeah.
this little whisper like, but you gotta go do this thing too. So
Exactly.
it's this weird balance. So when I see someone's experience like yours, which almost, it kind of mirrors mine, um, yours being a lot cooler, but mine having the same maybe number of things. And I'm like, oh, how do they do this? Because I feel like I don't know how I do it. And yeah, it's interesting. Let's go back to the start where we're ending at the start, which is
Mm,
some irony here. But you said, when you came to the U.S., you leverage sports as integration into the culture and maybe wellness, sports, fitness, however you want to classify it. Tell me about that experience of like getting to the US. You mentioned that there was a lot of reasons why you think that coming with an immigrant family to the US impacted your entrepreneurial journey. Let's dive into that part of your story.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Where do you want to start?
Tell me about like the first day.
Oh my gosh, I was 4 years old, Jordan.
You don't remember?
I don't remember my first day. My
What's okay,
gosh.
what's your first like impactful memory in sports?
I would say that it was sitting down with my parents and them asking me what I wanted to do, what sports I wanted to play. And I
Mm.
said, "What if I'm interested in a lot of them?" And their response was, "Okay, let's get you to experience
Okay,
a lot
we
of
figured
them."
it out. We figured out why now.
Ah, now
That's
I'm
exactly
understanding.
why.
You're
You just put
helping
it
me
together.
realize why I
Yeah, they're
behave the
like,
way that I am.
you could do it all. You're like, okay.
Yeah, well, honestly, though, it's funny because I'm very close to my family. So, very much so, like that has been a deep rooted value that was instilled in me as a child. But that was certainly a tenet that I've always experienced from them. So, it's an interesting thing to witness your parents moving from one country to a different country with absolutely no family relatives to rely on and no other relationships or connections to rely on. And seeing them trying to navigate having 2 little kids,
Mm,
and going to a completely new environment, not really having an understanding of English, so English wasn't my first language and I had to learn it, um, and then balancing being a really great parent while also making sure that a work ethic was something that was instilled with us as a kid.
yeah,
And it was, right? So not only did they allow my brothers and I to be able to just like lean into our curiosity in whatever way that meant. In my case, it was just trying a million different things and trying so many different sports and going to different activities and clubs and just like really trying to immerse myself into the culture, but then also simultaneously making sure that we would recognize that there was hard work that was involved. So while yes, they showed up to every single game, I also saw them work really, really, really hard. And it wasn't more so that they felt that they needed to or had to or were forced to, but it was because that they genuinely enjoyed work. They genuinely wanted to make sure that we saw how important it is to still lean into your individual interests and preferences, even from a professional capacity, and be okay with that and being able to balance these different personas and roles that we have in as a family unit.
yeah. And so what sports did you try? Like
Oh my
all the ones that you
gosh.
tried, and then what was your
Uh
favorite?
huh. Oh, okay. Yes. Great question. So I've tried, let's see. I've tried dance, cheerleading, basketball, volleyball, lacrosse, soccer, um, a little bit of football. It was like flag football for girls. And then
Yeah,
also did track and field as well.
I want to
The
guess.
only one that I liked was
Come here.
lacrosse.
Oh, dang it.
Yes.
I was wrong.
Yes. Were you going to guess? Which one did you think it
I
was?
said I wanted to guess, and then you just
Oh,
steamrolled me, but
I
that's
just
okay.
steamrolled it.
I was gonna guess basketball, but
No, no. I
no.
didn't. For some reason, the ball wouldn't go in the net anytime that I threw it. I
Which
feel
is
like
the main
that's
point.
the main point of the game. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the
Kind
only
of
one,
important.
only thing. It's the only thing you're supposed to do, and stop the other team from doing it.
Correct. I was really
S-
good at that part. I could do
Okay.
that. Hmm.
Lots of fouling.
Exactly.
So you did lacrosse,
Yes.
and you liked lacrosse. You played like high school
Loved it.
lacrosse, or how far did
Yes,
it
I
go?
played high school.
Okay.
Well, I actually was recruited for varsity, I believe the end of freshman year. So
Big
I
shot.
played, yeah, it was great. Ended up becoming captain, which was so much fun.
Wow.
Um, I know, lots of leadership experience, even at a young age. And then I was actually recruited to play collegiate, but I wanted to go through school really quickly so that way I can become a franchise owner and go into business. So I went the remote bachelor's degree route.
Yeah. Orange Theory, baby.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Okay. So okay, so you had to give up lacrosse. You could have been a professional lacrosse player, but you
I
decided
don't know
Orange
if I
Theory
really
instead.
could have been a professional lacrosse player. Let's put that on the record.
Okay. Editors, strike this from the record. Um, cool. And then, so from the integration into the culture from sports, what do you think you learned the most that maybe also applied to business or applied to like how you think today?
The importance of a team, for
Mm,
sure. I was fortunate enough where the sports, while I wasn't good at all of them, the ones that I enjoyed the most were very much so like team based. So uh, it's that in of itself just taught me so many skills, and it taught me that you can't do it alone, and that it taught me the importance of trying to understand how to work with others. So certainly being part of a team.
and the last question, the one that I enjoy the most, maybe. What is Aloysia's legacy in the wellness industry? What's the movement that you want to be known for creating?
Oh man, do I have to distill it into one answer? That's a great question. I would say that in the wellness industry, in an ideal world, I'm inspiring people to move. And it's the type of people who didn't think that they could move again or haven't moved in quite some time. Ideally, it's bringing more people in the fold to understand what it looks like to create a healthier body, which in turn will create healthier communities. But I would say that's much more so individual and personalized by nature.
Mm, I love that. And speaking of movement, there was one thing I forgot, which is you do marathons, ultra marathons, triathlons.
Yes. Yes.
Tell me about that real quick too. Do you have another
Well,
one? Do you have one coming up? Or are you done?
I actually
You
just
retired?
finished one. I didn't get, unfortunately, my legs decided to just completely shoot through, but I've done a couple 100 milers now at this point.
Ooh,
The one that I did this past weekend was a 100 miler. Unfortunately, my mileage cut short at 89 miles. I know I only had less than a half marathon to go. But it was a world of pain, I think is probably
yeah.
the most delicate way that I could experience, I could explain it. But yes, levels marathons.
Is there some like masochistic traits in this of like ultra marathoning, shock therapy, like it's like there's some brutal, you do some brutal stuff. And
Well, I
it
wouldn't
seems
say it's
crazy.
more, yeah, I would say that it's more so of I enjoy this idea of trying to figure out what my limits are, and I haven't
Mm,
experienced it yet, so I'll just keep going until I do.
love it. Well, I'm interested to hear when you hit that limit. Let's uh let's recap that on the next edition of this
Right.
podcast. But Eloisa, thanks so much for joining me today. I hope it was fun. I hope we got some good information here for everyone who's considering investing in businesses in the wellness space, or even just getting some inspiration from someone who's doing it all.
Thank you, Jordan.